Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live. Let me tell you, the dopamine, it's flowing.
I am damn excited.
We are so excited to be joining you guys tonight.
Oh! Well, how you doing, man? Patrick.
Will Sterling.
Yeah.
Super Bowl champion, two-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast. My name is Bryce Carter. This is the Intangibles. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Monday. Christian Ainsworth is with me as always. Christian, how was your football free, your Chiefs free weekend?
Well, considering I'm a Mizzou fan, it wasn't fantastic, but it was like sort of a breath of fresh air of like, hey, I don't have to worry about a whole lot. I get to watch the Bills and the Dolphins play and like only have a little bit of a stake in the game. Like it was kind of nice to live through some other teams' misery as well.
Yeah, the Mizzou stuff's tough. So, I mean, they lost their first and second string quarterback. Like, I think Sam Horn probably would have been a better option. They just had no passing game. The defense held strong there for a little bit, but A&M's a wagon. I mean, we're going to talk about some A&M players today, but they look really, really good, and that's going to be nasty. It was weird for me, like the stakes felt so much lower since Dylan Raiola for the Nebraska Cornhuskers is out for the year. They played at like 8 p.m., which was so late on a Saturday night for me. That game was going until 11, but DJ Lateef played really great. Emmett Johnson, we're going to talk about running backs and stuff today. Emmett Johnson has a real case to be in the Heisman conversation. He has more total yards and touchdowns than Jeremiah Love, than Ahmed Hardy. I mean, he's literally the leading rusher in the nation. I should say leading total yards because he doesn't have as much rush yards as Love, but he's got more receiving yards. 14 touchdowns on the season, playing really great. But we'll set our college fandom aside. Although I will say, I tagged you in that. The projected bowl for Nebraska is versus Mizzou in Music City. We're going to have to get down to Nashville and raise some hell. If that's the case, we're going to have to get an Uber home from Nashville to Kansas City. I don't know what that's going to take, but might be a couple grand there. But because I'm not driving it, and I know you're not driving. So,
hell no.
Well, we're in a chipper mood today because we get to talk about the draft, which is something that we're really passionate about. Something that I'm in all the time and Christian's in all the time. We've been texting back and forth all weekend about our favorite players and presenting our top 25 big boards. But before we get to the draft real quick, we do want to hit on a couple of Chiefs notes. So it's kind of a 50-50 weekend for the Chiefs. You're talking about your rooting interest outside of the Chiefs. Jaguars lose. That's good for the Chiefs. The Bills lose. That's good for the Chiefs. Also, just the Bills are never beating the allegations of regular season Super Bowl against the Chiefs every year. I mean, they literally play their best game of the year every year against the Chiefs, and they go out and lose to the Dolphins. On the other side of the coin, Chargers and Broncos both win, which isn't good news. I mean, the Chiefs, they're going to have to run the table in the division if they want to climb back into the AFC West race.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're in an interesting situation, too. It was really, really nice for the Dolphins to do that for us. They've kind of been like Team Chiefs for a really long time. I remember that playoff game. I can't remember who was calling it, but it was with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and he's beating the Patriots to give us the 1 seed and calling the game as it happens, like on both sides of it, which was really sick.
Kevin Harlan.
Yeah, Kevin Harlan. Yeah. So it is cool that they, threw us a bone again and give us another shot, but it's just going to be really, really tough for us to get that 1 seed this year. I don't know if that's even possible.
I think the 1 seed sailed. The Patriots are going to be the 1 seed. I mean, for a while here, we've talked about, and go back to our previous episode if you want to hear us talk to Brady Penn. He's a Patriots guy and also does various other media things for Georgia Tech and the Atlanta Braves. And I mean, for a long time now, the conversation around the Patriots has just been like, hey, cool, they're still winning. They're not slipping up, but they're beating nobody. Well, they go beat a really good Bills team down in Tampa Bay, down in the rain. And I think something of note there too is like Drake May was good, not great. Like he didn't have to be a superhero. There's Travion Henderson starting to look like the guy that they drafted really high out of Ohio State. That, I mean, there's a real situation that they're the 1 seed. So Mike Vrabel's on a fast track for the Coach of the Year award, which is crazy to think that nobody else realized that last year. But nonetheless, so Andy Reid did come to the podium today. Just a couple of quick Chiefs notes, but there's some news here, especially whenever you factor in the Chiefs are going to be facing off against what is right now on a historic pace Broncos pass rush. Josh Simmons, Andy Reid does confirm that Josh Simmons is back in town and it was with the team again. Always good to hear that, just simply because at this point it's just been reporting rather than confirmation from the coach, which given the nature of how they have covered Josh Simmons, getting him to acknowledge anything with Josh Simmons is news. And then the other piece of news is that Juwan Taylor is feeling better and was feeling better from his return to Buffalo, which means he had a week off. He also got married over the bye week. So congratulations to him. Looks like the Chiefs should have both of their tackles back for this game. Now, the question that I'll ask you, Christian, and something that I do think is interesting, and then we'll get going with the draft stuff, is do the Chiefs just put Josh Simmons back out there? Been away from the team for a month. A lot of times, Andy Reid's MO when players are activated off the IR or returning from injury is that they usually get a week to get their feet wet in practice. They don't play that first week, and then they come back and play the next week. So they kind of get 2 full weeks of practice. Do you think, one, Josh Simmons will start at left tackle for the Chiefs? And 2, do you think he should?
I think that he will, and I think that he probably should. I think we saw the past couple of games. We loved the Jalen Moore signing, and he came in and played really well for that first game. But going up against the Bills and also the Commanders a little bit, didn't do as well as we kind of figured that he would, and what he was projected to, how well he was projected to play. This to me is a non-starter. I understand that Josh Simmons has been away from the team. I understand he's a rookie. I understand that that's not really a formula that usually, breeds success in the NFL, being a rookie and also being, away from the team for an extended period of time. But to me, he's unquestionably probably the best left tackle on the team, on the roster. And could be the best overall tackle on the roster when it's all said and done with this year. And we're, kind of looking in hindsight. So this to me, non-starter. Let's get him back out there. It's also, it's going to be a tough week going up against the Broncos and their defensive line, which I think might play a part in whether they decide that he starts or he sits. But to me, this is, we got to have him, and we got to have him be good quickly.
Well, and I think this question got a little bit harder to answer with the other piece of news about Juwan Taylor returning to health and should be at least a limited or a full participant this week in practice, going off of what Andy said at the podium. Because there was a situation there that the question wasn't even one that had to be answered, because Juwan Taylor would be injured and Jalen Moore would have to play on the right side and Josh Simmons would have to play left side. But now that it sounds like Juwan Taylor's not going to lose his job to Jalen Moore. They seem very committed to him, and he also has played pretty well despite the game in Buffalo most of the season, leaving out the penalties, which he's been mostly penalty free since about the middle of this season so far. So it's a tough question to answer, and it's not one that I think is necessarily easy. I will say I think the matchup more favors Simmons as far as the fleet of footness, the moving ability. When you talk about Benito and Jonathan Cooper, those are your more quick, bendy, twitch edge guys. That's an area that Moore struggles a little bit. He's not quite that same range of motion that Simmons has. You just look at their body types, right? Like Simmons has that natural tackle look where he's closer to a basketball player than he is a big burly offensive lineman. And Moore's done admirably, and he has provided very respectable tackle play for this team. And I think you hopefully feel better about him being able to be the right tackle, seeing a little bit less advantageous matchups going forward next year. Josh Simmons, hopefully he continues to grow and develop. And they left Josh Simmons on an island for the most part when he was in his first 3 or 4 games as a starter. So potentially significant news with a very, very crucial AFC West matchup coming up. Real quick, we want to talk about our friends over at House of Atlas. Guys, these are great razors. Really recommend you get on these razors. I've got sensitive little skin, and I'm tired of those crappy razors tearing up my neck. House of Razors, they've got this great setup. So whether you're still figuring out gifts for your Christmas, House of Atlas, it's a no-brainer. Perfect for your brother, your roommate, or even yourself, or your podcast friend. When someone asks what you want and you don't feel like thinking, their grooming kits make it simple to clean up, and they actually look as good as the counter on the counter as they feel in your hand. The razor's weighted handle and precision trim make it effortless to get a smooth, clean shave every time. Something most razors just don't do. And the best part, you can grab them at Target. Target stores nationwide or online at target.com, so you don't have to overthink it. Your experience and results, these razors, guys, the weighted handle, they feel so good in your hand. It's a nice clean shave. They come in lots of different colors. They don't give me razor burn. Like I said, I get really bad razor burn, and don't sleep on their other products that they have, like their shave butter and things like that too. That really helps with the razor burn. We encourage you to check out House of Razors. They're redefining men's grooming, and with the premium tools and products that are designed to look good and feel good. So don't stress over last minute gets or settle for shaving products that don't deliver this holiday season. Give yourself or someone on your list the upgrade they deserve with House of Atlas. Grab it at Target stores nationwide or online at target.com. All right. Let's talk draft. All right, Christian. So let's just start really high level before we even get into the class. Obviously, there's a lot of water that's underneath the bridge. There could be injuries, hopefully not. That could change the Chiefs draft needs, free agency, who gets cut, who gets extended, yada, yada, yada. Right now, what do you view as the Chiefs' 3 largest positions of need headed into the 2026 draft?
I think the first 2 are pretty easy. And I think they were, sort of almost addressed in this past trade deadline, with defensive line being the biggest one, and then running back as well. You look at that defensive line group, and we talked about it. Not a whole lot of guys returning. You have Chris Jones, you have George Karlaftis, Omar Norman-Lott, and I believe that's it coming back for next season, which puts you in a bind as far as defensive linemen and, rotational guys go. This is a team that thrives on having a deep offensive and defensive line room. I think that's when we've seen the most effective versions of the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. So not having those guys in the rotation, not having a lot of talent there is really, really difficult. FAU is another guy that's going to be returning, just so we're clear. But then you look at running back. I think everybody, we don't need to labor this point that much. We know the running back room is not as good as it could be, and we see that every Sunday when every other team plays. And my timeline blows up from, could you imagine if Breece Hall was here? He wasn't worth a 3rd round pick. So yeah, I mean, those 2 positions I think are kind of the no-brainers. And then I think we get into a little bit more of a nuanced conversation where I know you are really, really high on linebacker and our need for a linebacker coming into this upcoming offseason. I think you could also make a claim for cornerback with Christian Fulton being a healthy scratch for a lot of the year, and then Jalen Watson maybe being on the way out. It puts them in a precarious situation where they're going to have to find talent. And I know they're great at developing talent later in the draft and finding those guys late, but that's a heavy burden to put on a roster every single offseason.
First off, shout out to the chat. We got some real ball knowers here in the chat. Excited for our brand and for people who are in here. We've already got Joshua Clayton shouting out the Godfather, Dante Corleone, the big body run stuffing interior defensive lineman for Cincinnati. Really fun player. One of the best nicknames in college football going right now. And then also Kahlua Chief shouting out Rockhurst alumni Cassius Howe. I have a feeling we're going to be talking about Cassius Howe here in a little bit. So, but yes, there's quite a few local connections here in this draft class. It's always fun to see those Kansas City kids going on to do well at the big powerhouse schools like Texas A&M and some of those SEC schools. So I me and you are basically in the same spot. I would say the top 2 positions of need. Number 1 is edge. Number 2 is interior defensive line. Simply because no matter what happens next year, Chris Jones is here. As far as barring an unexpected retirement or trade, like contract wise, he has to be here. In fact, you're probably revisiting his contract and converting it into signing bonus to get underneath the cap. No team currently is more projected to be over the 2026 cap than the Kansas City Chiefs. They have a lot of work to do to get underneath the cap. Now, we can start running down that list of you're cutting Juwan Taylor, you're getting the new Mahomes contract in his hand, yada, yada, yada. Travis Kelce, is he retiring? Things like that, the Chris Jones signing bonus. But nevertheless, they've got work to do. And also, let's keep in mind, they're over that number without a lot of defensive line depth. Charles Minhue, not on the team next year. Derek Nottie, not on the team anymore next year. Mike Pennell, not on the team next year. It goes pretty quickly. And also, you can cut Mike Dana and save $9 million against the cap if you post June 1 him. I don't necessarily like. Here's the thing. I think that they'll probably keep him, probably because he's just a ditch digger for them, and they don't really like to pay guys to not play for them. But I think that there needs to be a real turnover with the defensive line. They need to get more young. They need to get more athletic. They need to get more explosive. Felix Anudike-Uzomah will be a total unknown this year. The next year, he's basically in just a 1-year deal at that point, because I highly, highly doubt they're picking up his 5th-year option. Omar Norman Lott coming off the injury, whatever you've got in Gelati. So I have edge being their biggest need, and then interior defensive line. All jokes aside about like Dante Corleone, or there's another really fun guy here, Dominic Orange, Big Citrus, another really fun prospect. Like they need to start finding a guy who's a force multiplier on that defensive line, who can really two gap and occupy space, especially as Chris Jones is becoming more of the 30-year-old version of himself rather than the late 20s version of himself. And then running back for me, I do think that running back is a need. Good news, last year was this historic running back class, a really great running back class. I think this class is sneaky good. And like, there's one thing that I just keep coming back to. This is about my 4th or 5th draft where I'm really digging into it. The skill players are always going to be pretty good. And simply put, it's because the way the game is being played right now. Like you're seeing more and more kids play flag football. 7-on-7 camps are just exploding. Nobody, like, all jokes aside, there's a reason why offensive line play has never been worse in the NFL. The money, it goes to the guys who catch and carry the football, right? Like no one wants to be a nose tackle, right? Everyone wants to be a tight end or a wide receiver or a running back. So I definitely think that they should get into a habit of always taking at least one skill player every year. And for the most part, they've done that. And like, look at what you have in the hopper, right? Like Jalen Royals, he's a healthy scratch right now. I think you can feel good about that, just knowing that he's not needed right now, right? Like right now, they've got to figure out their wide receiver rotation, even without including him. So you've got him in the hopper for next year, but I definitely think running back's a big need. And then safety is another need that I think they have. I don't think that they'll be bringing back Brian Cook. Shamari Connor will be in the last year of his deal in 2026. Jaden Hicks is currently being outsnapped by those other 2 guys at safety. So I think that there's another one, and there's some pretty talented safeties in this class as well too. Overall impressions of the class that you have seen so far. Obviously, formally for me, I've evaluated 25 people. By formally, I mean I sit down, I write notes, I look at 4 games, I look at the 4 games what I like to look at, and I try to verify or broaden my exposure to these players. So what does it look like in a blowout? What does it look like when they're playing an SEC team? What does it look like when the weather's, whatever? I try to broaden that. Informally, I've probably looked at like 50 or 60 guys as far as just like, oh, that guy's nice. Let me kind of like dig into him a little bit. Let me read about him. Let me like pull up some clips of him and stuff. But overall, what is your impression of the 2026 class?
It's probably not as deep as, ones in the past or even this 2027 class, which is set to be historic. I would also say that there's a lot of talk about 3 or 4 quarterbacks being taken in the top, 10, 15 picks. I'm not sure that that's going to be a reality. So looking at this from, a Chiefs perspective, a lot of guys are going to be coming off the board that we would probably like to have in the red and gold, which is not a good sign for our first round pick hit rate. So we'll see. I would also say that there's sneaky good wide receiver class here. And if they take a wide receiver in the 2nd round, or maybe even late first, like, I don't think we should be, beating down Brett Veach's door. I think that there's a lot of talent there. You mentioned linebacker as something that we needed. I mentioned that as well, but there's also quite a few good linebackers here that I think could be, a sneaky good class where we grab somebody in the 3rd or 4th and they just become the next Leo Chanel.
Yeah, I think, football is cyclical. We see this a lot. I think the linebackers are kind of finally starting to catch up a little bit with the way the game is played. I mean, you look at some of the names, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, Anthony Hill Jr., even on down the board like Whit Weeks, or we talked about Jacob Rodriguez. Shout out. Hold on real quick. If you like this type of content, if you enjoy Chiefs Draft content, make sure you're subscribed on the podcast feed. Every Friday, we put out Primetime Prospects. It's just a quick 5-minute podcast that I do, breaking down the biggest players in the biggest game that are prospects for the Kansas City Chiefs. I called out Jacob Rodriguez as a guy, not David Bailey, but Jacob Rodriguez as the linebacker from Texas Tech. your boy Patrick LaVon Mahomes went on College Game Day and shouted him out as a Heisman candidate. So, I mean, don't take it from me. Take it from the man himself. He said Jacob Rodriguez is good. Like, he's a guy I don't want to disagree with, Patrick Mahomes. So, if you do enjoy this type of content, though, like, do check out Primetime Prospects. Just a quick hitter, perfect for, I don't know, like, you just walk into the mailbox or whatever. It's a really, really simple, kind of fun idea that we're starting to do more and more of here. But yeah, like the linebacker class, I agree. And I think, like, you know, what's it going to cost to keep Leo Chanel? Drew Tranquil is another guy who is, you know, starting to show some age. And I think, like, all these guys in the linebacking core could probably use a change of scenery. By that, I mean, like, do I ever think that they will take Nick Bolton out of the like captain of the defense, Mike? Probably not, because of it's very clear that they love him there. Honestly, what would Nick Bolton look like as a Sam? Like, where he's just running downhill? That would be fun. I think, like, Drew Tranquil, maybe if he starts putting on just a little bit more weight, could kind of go into that role. Like, he's not that weak side cover guy anymore. And obviously they have Jeff Bassa in the hopper too, but I still don't know about him. Just, like, think about how much teams have been attacking the Chiefs and base defense. I put this out. The Chiefs and base defense are the worst defense in the NFL per EPA per play. No one gives up more yardage and explosive plays than the Chiefs and base defense. So Jeff Bassa, if he's going to be on the field all the time, do you want him on the field against, like, the two tight end sets of the Bills or something like that? So I definitely think that linebacker is a sneaky need. Overall, my impressions of this class is it kind of stinks. Like, there are some people who, like, aren't super draft savvy that will talk and say, oh, this is how you guys say it every year. You say this class stinks and then the next class is great. I've been talking about the 2027 class for years. Okay. It's very clear. This is Jeremiah Smith, DJ Lagway, Ryan Williams, Dylan Raiola. Like, you can just go on and on. Dylan Stewart. There's so many, really, Ahmed Hardy. Like, I just keep going about guys. Like, South Carolina's got a hell of a left tackle. There's a lot of, like, 2027 class to me is going to be the best class we've seen since 2023. The class that had, like, Brock Bowers and that class. That was a really good class. This is more 2023 to me, like the FAU draft. And actually, the wide receiver class kind of reminds me of that class as well, too, which, by the way, that class turned out to be really good. Zay Flowers, JSN's, like, on pace to be the offensive player of the year. But yeah, one, like, high level thing that I take away, what you talked about taking a running back. This class, more than any, I measured my big board by what do I think this player's floor is rather than their ceiling, because I just want to come out of this draft with a good player. And I know that that's like, wow, draft the good players, high level analysis from Price Carter on the draft. But I will say this, when it comes to positional value, I might throw it out the window a little bit less. You know who killed the 2023 draft? The Lions. They took a linebacker, a running back, a safety, and a tight end in the first, like, top 55 picks, and they crushed it. They're the winners of that draft, okay? So, yeah, if I'm sitting there and Jeremiah Love or someone like that is sitting on the board, or maybe there's a safety that you just feel great about, or a linebacker that you really love, like, this might be the year. Obviously, I don't think that you're thinking guard, just where the Chiefs are set up there, but there's even a couple of guards that I think, like, could be first-round picks. And again, like, draft good players. That's what really matters here.
Well, yeah, and you don't want to turn into the Bengals, right? Where you're drafting these super athletic players that have no idea how to play the game of football, and then they come in and they are a nothing burger for you every single week. Look at that defensive line room outside of Trey Hendrickson. It's exactly what it is. It's guys who have super high RAS scores that are incredibly athletic, and guess what? If they knew how to play football well, they would be the best player in the league. The problem is, that's not always the case. It takes a lot to be a really, really good NFL player, not just your build, not just your RAS score, but, the technical aspects of the game. I tend to be a little bit more hopeful when I look at players. Like, whenever I'm, evaluating a player, I've talked about this a few times on the podcast, but I like to watch the film and I watch the highlight reel. And it's like, hey, this cut up on YouTube, 4 or 5 minutes. What is it that this guy does incredibly well? Why are people raving about him? Did I miss something? What's the ceiling of this player? And so you look at guys like a 6'5" wide receiver, who I might be a little bit higher on than you are. And I'm sure we'll talk about in just a minute, but definitely players who are like, hey, listen, the Chiefs have kind of coasted off of the 3 superstars, Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, and Travis Kelce. And you go, hey, listen, to get a superstar, you got to take some risk. You're not going to draft a superstar at pick 30 every single year. You're going to be left with kind of the scraps and those guys who are probably second round players. So if I'm the Chiefs and I'm in the first round, I'm taking big swings. And that's why we praise the Worthy pick a little bit more than I think we probably should have at the time. Josh Simmons was out of the park. That was definitely a risky pick. And then you look at other guys who we thought would have high floors and then, just end up being, not fantastic players at the next level. So that's where I would say my analysis kind of really, really lies is, what can they be a superstar if I'm drafting them in the first round? And that's what gets you a first round grade for me. Speaking of, I have about 10 guys here that are first round grades. Now you look at other years past and you'll see 13, 15, 17, even sometimes.
Yeah. I think the 23 class, I had 18.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is insane
fantastic class.
Yeah. So you're probably never going to get a super high talented first round guy at the end of the first round. But, when you're going through the draft class and you're looking at all these players, I think if you can grab one of those 10 or one of those 12, Brett Veach will be doing pretty good.
Real quick, let's talk about the Chiefs and what picks they have. You brought up some Breece Hall dialogue. Here's what the Chiefs are sitting at with their picks. They've got their own first round pick, their own second round pick, third round pick, fourth, fifth, and then a compensatory fifth coming their way. That's it. No sixth or seventh. So 2 fifths, that compensatory will be at the back end of the fifth round. So you're just sitting right now with 6 picks, nothing, very little draft capital on day 3. I will pound the drum for this. I always do. You want to be upset about the Chiefs not making a move at the trade deadline. Be upset, not because they didn't make the move, but be upset because there's no cap space because of guys like Christian Fulton and Elijah Moore's the wide receiver. Elijah Mitchell sitting on the bench, soaking up cap space, or draft picks that were used to trade for guys like Derek Nottie or Neil Farrell, or these weird moves that they've made where they're kind of like moving late capital for players. Like the Chiefs have to, or them always trading up in the draft. The Chiefs have always been a team that has prioritized, I like this guy, I'm going to go get him and make sure we get him. And sometimes that's worked out really well for them. Sometimes that has not. Like trading up into the draft to go get some of the players that they do, it's just not really worked out. They've, to my knowledge, have only traded down twice in the Brett Veach era. That's something that I think that they have to get better at, because it's not a coincidence that one of the best drafts this team has ever had was in 2022 when they had lots of picks. We can sit here and, besmirch Sky Moore all we want, but that's still a great draft class because they have Trent McDuffie, because they have George Karlaftis, because they have Leo Chanel, because they have Brian Cook. No one really gives a crap about Darian Kennard or Sky Moore in that class because of the quantity of picks. And some of the best run franchises in the NFL, yes, I know the Chiefs are also included in that phrase, they trade down often. And then you see a team like the Eagles go make 3 or 4 moves at the deadline, and it's like, hey, we're just going to throw numbers at the second cornerback position that we've been struggling at, and then we'll go get our difference maker like Jalen Phillips. This stuff takes time, but we're talking about, you've only got like 10 first round grades. So there might not be a big difference between player number 31 and player number 52. Maybe this is a good year to trade down. I think that this quarterback class could kind of provide some of those opportunities, kind of like the Jackson Dart trade down that happened for the Rams. Very savvy move by them. And hey, guess what? The Rams the Rams traded down with the Falcons, but the Rams are now sitting with a pick that's like projected to be a top 10 pick because of that. Oh, and they have their own first, and they're one of the best teams in the NFL right now. They can position themselves. They've got a big question to answer with what comes after Matt Stafford, which, by the way, he's playing like an MVP right now. But I do think that this is a time that the Chiefs should revisit that draft strategy and start looking at trading down the board and getting more players. Because, again, we talked about the positions of need. What if you can come out of this with a Justice Haynes and a Dominique Orange? And it's like, hey, we just got 2 really big difference makers at 2 really big positions of need, and we've picked up extra capital. Like, you wouldn't have an opportunity to go get both of those players if you draft in the first and then draft at the back end of the second.
Yeah. Well, dude, you're speaking my language with Justin Haynes, dude. Justice Haynes. That's one of my favorite picks, favorite players of this upcoming draft. And
it makes a lot of sense. Like, his one cut ability, he's someone who's got home run speed. He's what they like. And, I'd be a little interested to see him in some outside zone though. But okay, let's real quick, before we get to the big boards, this is the thing that decides the draft. We've touched on it a little bit. The quarterback class of 2026. For those of you, I debated on calling this episode intro to draft, like the draft for dummies, but we're not dummies here. We've said it before. This is 500 level, 5,000 level, or whatever it is now, football. So for those of you that haven't really been visiting the draft, you might be sitting there thinking like, so Arch Manning's 1-1, right? And that was definitely the dialogue. So first off, that whole dialogue was a little confusing because a lot of people who are familiar with the Manning family and what the Mannings did back when they were in college, Peyton and Eli, they didn't come out until their senior years. Arch Manning sat on the bench for 2 years behind Quinn Ewers as the backup. And Quinn Ewers, led them to several college football playoff games. He was the rightful starter. A lot of people were expecting a big year out of Arch Manning this year and for him to declare for the draft. Not only has that not really materialized as far as his play on the field, he's also just probably not going to come out anyways. I never really thought he was going to come out despite how he played this year or next year. But he's not played well. So any thought of us talking about Arch Manning just not really going to happen this year? Frankly, I don't think he was healthy. I think he looked like he was in pain when he was throwing the ball, and he's looked better here of late. And they've got a big game coming up this week. Might be my primetime prospect game, but I don't think that Arch Manning is where we're talking. So this quarterback class, we're talking about a couple of names. Fernando Mendoza, who just had a hell of a performance coming back against Penn State, a legacy drive for him and what might be his Heisman moment. Quarterback from Indiana, Dante Moore, the quarterback from Oregon, who Patrick Mahomes said is his favorite quarterback in college football, which actually I could hear Dylan Raiola's heart shatter from Lincoln as Patrick Mahomes said that. I was just like, oh, God, you're just killing us, brother. So Dante Moore, quarterback from Oregon, Ty Simpson, the quarterback from Alabama. And then, some people at this point, I don't know. Do you think that the South Carolina quarterback comes out? Lenore Sellers?
No.
I just don't think he's got tools, but I think like in a post Anthony Richardson world, which is the comp for him, he needs more time.
Well, now here's the thing though. Now here we could add a little interesting aspect to this. Dude, if I'm a quarterback getting drafted, I don't want to get drafted top 10. Like, I know that's where the money is, and I know that that's what a lot of quarterbacks feel like in college. But, dude, I would rather be like a Lamar Jackson and get drafted later and go to a team where I can kind of learn a little bit and then come out and then just show them what we got. Like, so if he's taking that route, if he has, perspective enough to look that far forward, I think that he might come out. But no, based off of, the current trend of quarterbacks coming out maybe even a year too early sometimes, I think that he's probably going to sit and just hang out and put together a real performance, I guess, a real body of work before he comes out in the draft.
And something else to factor in this is like in the NIL era, quarterbacks, I think, should lean on the side of staying for longer than coming out earlier because the money's great. I mean, these guys are all well compensated right now for the same reasons that you talked about. Like, what's that? The Jets and the Jets and whatever crappy other team, the Jets and the Browns are in position to go 1-2. Like, do you really want to expose yourself to that? You're trying to set yourself up long-term to be a great player in the NFL. That infrastructure is not necessarily the infrastructure that you want to see. And there's been a lot of guys that like, is this the Lizon Agaib? Is this the player that the Prenti was promised? And all these guys have fallen flat on their face this year. Like we talked about Lenore Sellers, Garrett Nussmeier, his dad's an NFL OC for the Colts. He just got benched. John Matieri, I don't think he was ever crowned, but he got injured this year. He's just not the thrower of the ball that you want. Cade Klubnik has fallen well down the board. Drew Aller got hurt. Carson Beck, I mean, at one point, this time last year, people thought Carson Beck could have been a first-round pick. He's not showing that. Miami struggle. Like, there's just nobody that's really blowing your socks off in this class. So, real quick, just ranking kind of like Mendoza, Moore, and Simpson. Where do you sit on those three? How would you rank those guys?
So that's to me is the perfect example of a first round, second round, and a third round quarterback. I think Ty Simpson is a first round quarterback. I see a lot of intelligence in what he's doing. Seems poised in the pocket. He does a really, really good job with his timing and the feel of the pocket collapsing. He can scramble too, which I feel like is kind of an underrated aspect of his game. Then you get to Mendoza, and I see the vision. I see how, people look at him and they go, hey, I like the off timing stuff. I like his ability to throw the football down the field. I just have questions about accuracy and also about, really being able to read a defense. Ty Simpson can look and, giving some credit where credit's due here. Mendoza has been asked to do a whole lot more as far as look around the field and make progressions. Ty Simpson mostly is just a one guy. Like, hey, when we're calling a play, you're looking at the cornerback. If he goes back, you throw it short. If he goes up, you throw it deep. But to his credit, he's done that incredibly, incredibly well. So I think Ty Simpson probably not going to be an elite quarterback at the next level, but definitely worthy of a first round pick. And then Mendoza, again, there's just a whole lot of questions there, where I look at him and I see, impatient, young quarterback who maybe just doesn't have it all put together yet, but could, definitely somebody who is worth a look in the second round. And then Dante Moore, I'm going to have to disagree with the greatest quarterback of all time here. He is not my favorite prospect to watch as far as quarterback goes in this upcoming draft. He has good pocket presence and he's able to scramble really well, but there's a lot of things that I don't really like. I think his vision is something that, needs to be worked on. Accuracy is another thing. And then the pre-snap knowledge as well. I just sometimes feel like he has no idea what he's looking at when he's out there. He's just kind of off.
Yeah. The Indiana game is kind of the canary in the coal mine for him.
Yeah.
Like I think that you saw him get beat there. And I mean, credit to him, that game in Iowa, like in Iowa City, he made some major FU throws. That go route that he rips down the right sideline. And by the way, like Sadiq was out in that game. Evan Stewart's not playing. Like they're down several receivers, and he was still putting it on people in a cold, rainy game. That was a big moment for him. For me with Simpson, I think the thing that I come back to the most is one, and this is true of Moore and Simpson, and worth mentioning here too. Both guys have sat and waited their turn. These guys were not like high level. I can't remember the recruiting profiles. I've not dug into it very much because it frankly doesn't matter for what we do. But these guys were not like true starter freshmen. They've sat and waited behind some other guys that are now in the NFL. And instead of transferring out, they waited their turn. They've developed in the system. So there's not a ton of tape for these guys, other than just like some blowout moments that they got in games. So I do think like both guys, the upside is a little bit more tantalizing, which also, by the way, they could go back. I'd be surprised if they did, given what lingers in the 2027 class with some guys who are true 5-star recruits who have started as true freshmen, like Rayola and Lagway and some of those guys. And then, you still got Arch waiting there too. So I think it would make sense for them to come out because really you want to be the belle of the ball, for lack of a better term, when it comes to quarterback. And then Mendoza and Moore, I think, have some, like, if we're going to put on the highlight reel, like you talked about, I think that they have more like quote unquote Sunday throws. But I think the floor is a little bit lower, like with the turnovers, and Mendoza's got the most experience of them. I came back to liking Ty Simpson the best just because of his mobility too. I think like he has some of the better mobility skills of all those three guys, and also like I just like the connectivity of what they run in Alabama as far as like NFL offense goes. It feels like the most pro-ready system. We know the Michael Penix connection there with Kalen DeBoer. And obviously they just put another quarterback in the NFL. Just real quick, I'll just do my weekly buff. Josh Clayton made a comment here about drafting another Shane Buechele. Shane Buechele wasn't a draft pick. He was UDFA. But like we had a Georgia Tech guy on that podcast last week. Like, my God, can we please draft Haynes King in the 7th round to run goal line? Like, dude, QB power with him, or just like it's like having Rashee Rice like back there, but he can actually throw, because like we've seen how powerful that is. Boy, just please get me Diego Pavia or Haynes King in the 7th round for just like some like dick punchers down at the goal line. Like that's I would kill for that. Like you've committed yourself to never running the quarterback sneak for Patrick Mahomes, which is so stupid, by the way. It's like, oh, Xavier Worthy hurt his hamstring on a corner route. He's never running it again for that reason. But at least do that. Get some Haynes King in here. Okay, let's get to the big board tier. Obviously, we're after that conversation about quarterbacks simply because quarterbacks, they decide the draft, right? Like that, it is where you must start all draft analysis because it's the straw that stirs the drink for the rest of the draft. Most of the time, quarterbacks decide the draft. So there's some just quick analysis on it. So Caleb and I, or why did I call you Caleb? Oh, it's because I just read Caleb Lomu's name. That's why. Okay. Sorry.
That's all right. I'll let it slide.
All right. So we have prepared a top 25 big board. Just a heads up. We're going to have the Arrowhead Addict big board go live this week here on the website. What I'm thinking about doing this year, still need to talk with Matt Connor, editor-in-chief over at Arrowhead Addict, is I think we're going to probably put Christian and I's rankings together and create a consensus. And then maybe this year I decided that years prior on the Addict big board, I did a weighted board for positions of need and not positions of need. So no quarterback, limited on interior offensive line. We downgrade centers, stuff like that. I think I'm just going to do a straight big board this year, simply because I think it makes sense for other fan bases to engage with too. Like, it's just not just Chiefs, but our big board. And I interact with a lot of other draft people who aren't Chiefs fans, so that way it's a little bit more applicable to them. So Christian, your 25 to 20 prospects, go.
20 to 25. So if I had to, this is for the bottom of my ranks, right? We're going from bottom to top. Okay. So right now I have Denzel Boston as my 25th. I have Jamal Haynes, the Georgia. Oh no, excuse me. Mekhi Lemon as the wide receiver out of USC. I have Dante Moore. I have LT Overton, the edge out of Alabama, and then Christian Miller, the D tackle out of Georgia.
Okay. Talk to me about Christian Miller, the defensive tackle out of Georgia. He's not a guy I've gotten a chance to lay eyes on, and he's not someone that you're going to see on a ton of like consensus big boards. So tell me a little bit about why you liked him and what you think he brings to the table as far as a prospect for the Chiefs.
So Christian Miller is he definitely has some developmental issues. I think he's definitely an unfinished product. If I had to put a kind of label on him, he has super good anchor strength. Just looking at his build here, he is 6'4", 305 pounds. So definitely a 1 to a 3 tech, probably more 1 tech than 3 tech. But he has some of that pass rush skill that you look for and some flash with speed in his hands. He definitely has some physical gifts. He is a powerful individual. He can align versatilely along the defensive line. He's very much a guy who you can put at a 1 or a 3. You look at him and I think, I see him as like a mid to late second round pick who can come in and be that Derek Nottie plus that you're looking for as a Chiefs fan. Somebody who can down eat early in the game. And if you have to have him out there, if it's one of those situations where you're playing a team like the Bills who like to have base personnel out there, he can provide you some pass rush. Definitely needs to be refined. Definitely not a finished product, but somebody who can play multiple positions. A guy who does one thing really, really well, and then can also, give you some upside other places.
So is he your top rated, like kind of 2-gapping nose tackle?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I have him above, what's that other guy? Peter Woods.
Okay. And did you get a chance to look at Dominique Orange or Corleone yet?
No, I have not seen Big Citrus yet, but
okay.
My Twitter replies he is one of the greatest prospects to ever walk the earth. So I'm sure I missed out on that.
It's further proof that branding is everything, and that what you really just need is a great nickname, right?
Yeah,
great nicknames take you a long way for those two guys. But yeah, I'm interested in that. Okay, so just kind of going over, we have a little bit of, we didn't actually have any overlay there, but we have some of the same guys. So at 25, a guy that I've gotten to that I really like, Blake Miller, the right tackle out of Clemson. Great feet. He's had a much improved this year against some high-level competition. Movement skills are there. He's a guy who's pretty much stuck at right tackle. I like him a lot for the Chiefs because I think that they could still be in the tackle market. Really agile. His hands have improved a lot, and his anchor's gotten a lot better this year too. Caleb Banks, interior defensive lineman from Florida, is my 24th prospect, number 88, repulsive number to wear. There's a couple of guys this year on my board that I'm putting on there based upon the few flashes that we've seen, and there's just real injury concerns. He struggled to get on the field this year and played for a few games and then left with foot surgery again. For big guys, that's really concerning, but he has some of the best flashes of any interior defensive lineman in the class. He has some of the get off where you just see it and you're like, oh, that looks like an NFL defensive tackle, where it's more than just run stuffing. It's total upside as a pass rusher. At 23, I have Caleb Lomu, the left tackle from Utah. He's one that I kind of put in a similar vein as Kingsley Suamataia a little bit, where it's like, I see the traits, I see the skill, but how does this translate? A little bit. I think the tools are a little bit better with Lomu, but also there's that's another really heavy RPO system. I've not looked at the true pass sets for him yet, but my guess is that they're probably few and far between from what I've seen from Utah. A really fun player that has a really great name, and I think Chiefs fans will really like Casey Concepcion. You saw him in Texas A&M. He's been an impact player on special teams. The Chiefs are going to see this guy and be like, we need him. He's small. He's fast. He's shifty. He returns punts and kicks. Get him on the Chiefs. But he is dynamic with the ball in his hands. Don't know what the measurements are going to come in on him, but he is very much Zay Flowers-esque. Like, that's kind of what I see there. And the Chiefs, they really like Zay Flowers. This is another guy. Injury questions. Has not played a snap of football this year, but some of the people that I really trust in the game really are still high on this player overall. And at this point, with how their season's going, I wonder if he's just going to start prepping for the draft. Gerard McCoy, the cornerback from Tennessee, had an ACL injury late. I believe it was in the playoffs for Tennessee. So there was always going to be a long timeline. But when recently asked about it, Josh Heupel said it wouldn't be fair for me to comment on that situation. It's just kind of a non-answer, right? Like, it seems like it might be best for him to just start prepping for the draft. Or maybe he goes back. And that's something to note here, too, is that, like, we just don't know. Some of these guys, they're going to be crossed off our list because they decide to go back to school. And again, like, they could get millions of dollars to go to, like, Penn State. And, you know, like, that's a pretty cool opportunity, too. So go ahead.
Okay, so Gerard McCoy, he's a guy that I have a little bit higher. Where do you have him ranked as far as just, like, projected draft round? Maybe not projected, but what's your draft?
Oh, well, I mean, he has potential to be the top corner drafted if he was healthy. Right.
Well, yeah, 100%.
If he strung together the year he did last year and built on top of it, I absolutely think so. Especially when you factor in this year, there's not nearly the pass rush that Tennessee had. Like, Tennessee was a defensive team last year. It was kind of weird. It was, but Nico stunk, and they had Omar Norman Lott and James Pierce, and they have some guys. And this year they've not been built that way. It's much more of the shootouts, and they've desperately needed him. But I think he has CB1 potential. I don't think that he goes there now if he were to come out because of the injury and because of the lack of tape. But I could see a team taking him. What was the corner that the Cowboys drafted? He was a MAC guy. It'll come to me. But he missed most of last year, and he had those first-round traits and had first-round flashes, but didn't quite make it because of the injury. But so he's not my top corner, but I definitely think, like, maybe a team tells themselves, like, hey, we believe in the rehab and stuff, and that we're getting real value here.
Yeah, he could be a legit. That's why I have him as a second-round grade, kind of like Will Johnson last year, where it's like, hey, listen, you know, you're a really, really talented guy. Probably would be the first guy out if we were to do it right now, but you've got the injury hanging over your shoulder. So if I'm going up to my next part of my board, I have Jadarian Prince, the running back out of Notre Dame, the not super flashy one named Jeremiah Love. I have Jonah Coleman, the running back out of Washington. Mansour Delane is my next guy, the cornerback out of LSU. And then I have AJ Harris, the cornerback out of Penn State.
This man loves this cornerback class.
Yeah, I cannot. Well, that's my position, dude. That's what I coach high school wise. It's cornerbacks and wide receivers. I feel like I know how to eval them really, really well. So I'm always going to lean a little bit heavier on them than I do any other position. But
yeah, I mean, I do think that this cornerback class does have some, like, or this running back class does have some sneaky good players in them. And, like, there's a couple of guys like that. Like, we're talking about that Penn State game with Indiana. Nick Singleton and Catrell Allen, like, both those guys really pop when you watch that. And Love and Prince are another one of those classes. Jonah Coleman, let me talk about him for a little bit. I think a lot of people are going to be really interested in the running back class. I think this is a guy that they see Washington, they might think spread air raid guy, but that's not really his game, is it?
No. Sorry, I'm just having some technical difficulties here. Why don't you talk about him for just a second?
Yeah, so, like, Coleman is a bigger bodied guy. And Washington's kind of evolved a little bit under the new coaching staff, but he's a guy who gets downhill, has great traits. I don't know what he's going to come in at. He looks close to 220 to me. Size-wise. And he can lower the shoulder, good contact balance. I know Brugler thinks of him as potentially RB2 in the class. So he's another guy that I really like. I'm not sure where I'm going to come between him and Justice Haynes as RB2. For me, like, Love is my RB1. Although, I do think that there's just another tier of those guys that I think could really make some noise and really rise up boards. And again, given the depth of this class, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a 2 or 3 running back first round.
Oh yeah, no, I would agree with you. It's not nearly the class last year was as far as running back talent goes, but definitely one that is sneaky good. Coleman for me, so he's 5'9", about 230 pounds, which, I believe 100% when you're watching him play, man. He is, he's very short, very stout, but very, very powerful. I think his catching out of the backfield is a little bit underrated. I don't think a lot of people are talking about that, but he definitely has the ability and the mentality to catch the ball out of the backfield and then just be a different kind of yak guy. So not your Xavier Worthy, not your Rashee Rice, but like a Cam Scatabo. Like, I'm just going to put my shoulder down and run you over. He does have really, really good burst too, which this is going to be a comp that pisses off a lot of Chiefs fans, but that Sky Moore, like quickness, whenever he got the ball immediately, just that short little quick burst, I think is what kind of sets him apart from some of the other guys in this class. Not a home run guy, though. I don't think that he's somebody that is going to be able to translate super long runs into the NFL. But he's definitely a guy that if you're looking for like a third down running back who you can either give it up the middle or a quick throw to the outside, he can be that guy for you. And had a lot of zone run scheme runs playing for Washington too. So he would be a guy that if you're a Chiefs fan could come in and play legit reps for you immediately.
He's not quite a psychopath as Cam Scatteroo, but like but some of the things that we're talking about, like the soft hands and those type of things as a receiver, I think there's some translation there between those two guys. Number 20, I have a guy. Mateo Ugalele, DJ Lag. Or ukulele. Sorry, I'm just end up saying ukulele. Yungali or whatever it is. DJ Yungali's brother is the edge out of Oregon. 6'5", 275 pounds, edge setter. This is another guy that I could see the Chiefs really being in on. Number 19, I've got Fernando Mendoza. Let's talk about number 18. You had him on your board too. Denzel Boston, the wide receiver out of Washington.
Yeah, so Denzel Boston.
That's never going to be easier, by the way. I'm going to say Denzel Washington like 15 times because of the actor, and then also you're like, wait, his last name's a city, but Denzel Boston from Washington.
Yeah, so he's 6'4", 210 pounds. He's definitely an ex-receiver. I think that he isn't necessarily the best route runner in this class. I think that we're gonna talk about some guys who have the ability to get open one-on-one. But he's a guy that has fantastic hands, plucks the ball out of the air when it's thrown to him, has the size, has the need to beat press coverage, which if you're looking at the Chiefs roster, not necessarily a guy we have on there right now. He's a really, really good blocker as well. That's one of the things that I really liked about him too. Just like a team first run blocking guy. So if you need that like MVS guy who can come up and play on the line and just be an astounding blocker for you, he can do that. I think that he will struggle against guys who are really big and really physical, not necessarily the short, quick guys, but he, to me, has that kind of Keon Coleman, like if you're looking at his college tape and you're going to play him at the X, it's like you're just going to have to throw to him even when he's not open because he's going to be open when he catches the ball. I mean, those 50-50 balls seems like 70-30 or 80-20 balls whenever they're thrown to him. Just really, really good ball skills, really, really good tracking ability, and the physicality you want from a guy who, is going to eat up downs as your sacrificial X.
Yeah, to your point, 0 drops this season according to PFF for Boston, and I the Keon Coleman rep, I think it sticks in the sense of what you're talking about with the route tree and the contested catch. That was the thing that always kind of like was the dirty secret about Coleman is like he had the best highlights, but if you actually look at the amount of drops he had, he actually wasn't that great in contested catch situations. But I like him too, and we constantly revisit this conversation of like, will the Chiefs ever try to get bigger at receiver? Probably not. But if they wanted to, Boston could be a guy to do that as their kind of quote unquote sacrificial X. And he's pretty surprisingly athletic. The way he moves, not the player. I don't think he's nearly as great of a route runner, but the way he kind of glides reminds me of Ted McMillan a little bit, where he just kind of seems to have a different way that he moves about him. And yeah, just excellent in contested catch situations for him.
Well, and this is going to sound like I'm scouting the helmet here, but he's from Washington. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Rome Odunze.
Odunze was just so dynamic down the field.
Yeah, I know.
It's been weird because Odunze's kind of like gotten cold here lately for the Bears, but he was looking like a wide receiver one. I loved Odunze, man. Okay, so number 17 for me, I have Avion Terrell, the younger brother of AJ Terrell. He is a classic outside cover corner. I'm not sure what the measurements are going to come on. It looks like the arm length's really good on him. To me, he is a team that I think a guy that the Chiefs may not love as much as everyone else because he's not a tackler. He's not a stick your nose in, set the edge type of guy, blow up a screen pass. I mean, you can turn on the tape and you can find several times where I was like, all right, he's going to kind of like throw you to the ground instead of like body tackle you. And, isn't necessarily going to try to set the edge for you. But I like him closer to the line of scrimmage actually than I did in off coverage. Like I thought he looked his best when he was up against an press, when he can get his hands on someone. I wonder what the build is going to be for him. I'm not sure he quite inherited his brother's size as far as the weight goes and the height, but really good tape for Avion Terrell. Let's talk about LT Overton, the edge out of Alabama. And Steve put a very good comment in the chat here about Mateo Ugalele. Like, this class is filled with Spags type guys at defensive end, which I don't know if I'm excited about or not. With the news coming out this weekend, Adam Schefter put out that the Chiefs were close to acquiring Boye Mafe. You've now got Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Josh Uche, and Boye Mafe, which, by the way, they're all like, I don't know. There's something there with the names. I'm not sure. But the Chiefs kind of seem committed to getting some of these smaller guys. There's guys in this class that they want to get a smaller, bendy guy, but the Chiefs constantly go to the well. There's a lot of guys like LT Overton who are these bigger edge-setting guys who can move all along the defensive line.
Yeah, and you talked about it being kind of a hindrance that we're not necessarily focusing on those guys, even though we drafted FAU and we are so close. Team almost, Brett Veach, almost getting another guy who could rush the passer without a power move. It is kind of disheartening that we aren't, truly committing to any of those positions outside of the FAU pick. But it does feel like in this draft, if you're Steve Spagnuolo, there are guys you can go out and get and they will fit your system, and they don't have to be first round draft picks which if you're looking at this Chiefs team and you look at the limited amount of picks we have in this upcoming draft, like it's almost perfect in the way that this has been timed out as far as defensive line talent goes. Now, to me, LT Overton, I do think he's a versatile guy. 6'5", 280 pounds. He can definitely play all along the defensive line. But he's just a guy that doesn't really move the needle for me as far as pass rush goes. I think he's definitely that George Karlaftis archetype of, hey, power. And then I can do moves off of that, but I will probably never be an elite guy. And if you're drafting a first round pick, I don't mind if the first round draft pick miss rate is super high, as long as we're drafting guys who have the potential to take the sort of torch from Chris Jones or Travis Kelce or, eventually Patrick Mahomes. But we got to have somebody, who has the ability to get, to make offensive linemen stay up at night. And I just don't know if he's that guy.
Yeah, if you ask me right now, what is the gap between him and Ashton Gelati as far as prospects goes? I'm not sure how big it is. In fact, I thought Gelati had a little bit more juice. It's probably just like the recruiting profile, which he's a former 5-star, plays at Alabama, has played at Alabama for several years with some of these great guys like Dallas Turner. And, he's another one of those guys that, again, I think you're measuring the floor, not the ceiling with him. But if the Chiefs want to get another ditch digger, for lack of a better term, if you're trying to replace Mike Dana instead of trying to replace George Karlaftis, I think that gets a lot easier. Okay, so give me your next chunk here on your draft board.
Well, so how many do you have left? What number?
I've got 15 left.
Okay, so I'll break it out all the way to the top 10. So I have Avion Terrell. Then I have Caden Proctor, the interior offensive lineman out of Alabama. A lot of people have him as a tackle, but he's a big, almost like Orlando Brown type.
I've actually got him as a slot receiver.
Okay.
You've watched the game. I have him as wildcat quarterback and slot receiver because they have thrown the ball to this very, very large man, and he has taken handoffs out of the backfield, which is really just the work of art.
He'd be great for the Lions. We need to get him
Yes.
with the I guess it would be
Ben
the
Johnson.
Bears
Yeah.
now. So then I have Connor Liu, who's a center from Auburn. He's a Creed Humphrey type of guy who's a little bit undersized, but former wrestler. Really, really knows how to get and use leverage. Francis, how do you pronounce this dude's last name? Mauigoa?
Yeah, Mauioga. Yeah, that's how I would say it.
Mauioga. Okay, he's the offensive tackle from Miami. He's a potential All-Pro guy. I think that he could be fantastic. Trent Brown is my comp for him from the New England Patriots. Really, really good, prototypical size, athletic profile, powerful blocker. I think he is still a little raw technically, but it's definitely a guy who could, if you're the Chiefs and he's sitting there at 31 or 32. Hopefully we can pull the trigger and get him. Then I have TJ Parker and then Reuben Bain Jr., both edges. TJ Parker out of Clemson, Reuben Bain Jr. out of Miami. I feel like I'm going to be a lot lower on Reuben Bain than you are, Price.
Yeah, you certainly are. Okay, so real quick, going back to Francis Mauioga, I have him as my number 5 prospect. I have him as my top graded tackle. 6'6", 315 pounds. I don't think he's quite that huge, like 350 pounder, like you were kind of talking about with Trent Brown. But either way, like I think he's the most clean evaluation of any of the like tackles. When I come back to this tackle class, there's just a lot of inconsistency all throughout it. I thought he put together the most consistent tape. Let's real quick. So let's talk high level for the draft class. For edge, Reuben Bain, for me, who is my number 1 overall prospect. And I think like if you want to have one criticism of him, it's been that he's kind of disappeared in some of these bigger games for Miami, but also like he has had games against good competition where he's just deciding the game for it. Like you cannot put an offensive infrastructure together because of what he is doing both against the run and the pass. He's got the physical body type. Like when I look at him, I see Jared Verse. That's what I see. And, I think like looking back, Jared Verse probably should have went higher than he is. Like at the beginning of that year, there was a chance before he went back that Jared Verse could have been a top 5 pick, like the power, the speed to power. And obviously like Jared Verse, he's not an All-Pro, like, but he is that type of player. And this is kind of a down class anyways, but I just think the true game wrecking ability for him. Then we get this little bucket of players. I'll kind of put them together. Keldrick Folk. He's the edge out of Auburn. TJ Parker, the edge out of Clemson. LT Overton, the edge from Alabama. And then Mateo Ugalele, who I had on mine. They are all these kind of bigger run-setting defensive ends, and a lot of them have guys playing on the outside of them at the wide 9 or something like that as a pass rusher. These guys are all more about setting the edge. They all have good pass rush plans, but it's more centered around power and converting speed to power and then shedding blocks. Like I thought, like for my favorite out of them is Keldrick Folk out of that bucket, other than Reuben Bain. And Keldrick Folk to me, like just has great eyes. Like his eyes are always in the backfield, and it really looks like he's going to hold up at the point of attack and then just boom, shed, and I'm going to go get the guy. And I thought he had the most splash plays in the pass rush too. But let's talk about the other side of the coin here. If the Chiefs wanted to get into this market, there's a lot of these guys that are really interesting. The first, and Dane Brugler's going to have him as his number 1 overall prospect when his top 50 comes out tomorrow. Arrowhead, the linebacker from Ohio State. He is Jalen Walker, the most similar comp, right? He has rushed the passer for over 100 snaps. He has played in coverage for over 100 snaps. He's played in the run over 100 snaps. You can mug him up with the line of scrimmage. He is that apex defender. But what is he really going to do? Like, he is small and undersized, but his pass rush tape, it's great. Then you get into guys who are more pure pass rushers. That's your Cassius Howell, the guy who we talked about from Rockhurst here in Kansas City. David Bailey from Texas Tech. There's some more of these smaller, undersized guys. How do they stack up to you as far as pass rushers? Like, I just feel like there's buckets here to this class.
Oh, 100%. And if we're going to pick one guy out of those guys that you named for the Kansas City Chiefs, as much as I don't think Spags would love it, Arvell Reese to me is the guy. He's that Micah Parsons type of dude who, if he put on a little bit of weight, I feel like could just dominate the game at the next level with his speed. And just his versatility. Man, I know he'd be running backwards in the KC Chiefs defense, but my God, man, he would look so good doing it. He's just all over the field. He's a guy like Caleb Downs, the safety, who a lot of people have really highly touted, who just plays all over the place, plays every single position really, really well, and just does a great job at being that kind of mistake eraser where, hey, we need somebody who can do this. This guy isn't playing well. Arvell can do it. Hey, we need somebody that can rush the passer on this critical third down to win the game. Who can do it? Arvell can do it. Like that's just the type of player he is. He's my second rated player in the entire draft for that very reason. He's just a dude that can play all over the place, can erase mistakes, and then is just super athletic and super, super smart. I think that's another thing that doesn't get talked about a lot. He just has a great feel for the game, is all over the place. And again, he's just that glue guy. He can do everything for you. Outside of that, I think that if you got a Cassius Howell or a Kendrick Falk, I watched Kendrick Falk a lot after you recommended him to me. I see Marcus Davenport plus as sort of that guy who is pretty athletic, has the power to hold O-line at the point of attack, has the pass rush moves, still kind of fitting it all together, I think, but definitely somebody who, has the potential to be an all-pro player if he develops into what he could be.
Yeah, when I look at Arvell Reese, I think about infrastructures where they come into, where it's like, are you drafting this guy with a plan? Point in case, Nicky Manwari, the big, long, powerful safety from South Carolina that's looking like this apex predator, for lack of a better term, in the Seahawks defense. That was everyone's favorite player to mock to them because of the Kyle Hamilton role and stuff. There's a role there. You don't draft Arvell Reese without a plan to use him, which is why I don't think the Chiefs will draft him. To be facetious. But yeah, I continually, I think that the Brett Veach, it's clear that there is a desire to get a guy who can win quicker than 2.5 seconds. So I think David, I can't remember if it's either Hal or Bailey. There's some Brugler brought up on his show that like sub 29-inch arms for one of them, like historically small, short arms, which is a big deal for an edge setter. Like we talk about that ability to shed and rip. If you're a tackle, which, we're talking tackle arms are always such a huge deal. If you're sitting there being locked out by 34.5-inch arms by your tackle and you're at 29, like that's just the path to win there is just really, really hard. Okay, real quick. Let's, I'm a little bit behind, and also like we could be here for 2.5 hours doing this. So we'll speed up the pace here a little bit. So here's my 15 to 10. Or actually, I'll go 15 to 5 because we had some overlap. So David Bailey, Cassius Howell, the edge out of Texas A&M, TJ Parker, the edge out of Clemson, Kenyon Sadiq, the all-world tight end from Oregon at 12, Mansour Delane, the cornerback from LSU as my CB1, Jeremiah Love, the running back out of Notre Dame at 10, Peter Woods, the interior defensive lineman for Clemson. I was much higher on him than you. Keldrick Folk, the edge from Auburn. Jordan Tyson, we haven't talked about him, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. 6, Carnell Tate, the wide receiver from Ohio State, and Francis Mauioga, we already talked about him, the offensive tackle out of Miami. Real quick, let's talk about the top end of this wide receiver class. Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson. Are those your top two wide receivers?
No. Okay. They are not. Oh, you want me to tell you? Chris Brazel the second and Carnell Tate are my two guys that lead this class.
So did you leave Tyson on your top 25?
No. He is I think number 14. No. He's number 9. Number 9 on my list here.
I liked him better out of the, he plays on the outside. I liked him better out of the slot. Like to me, he looks
yes,
like
100%. He is not going to be able to play unless he develops better hands throughout the route and is a little bit more physical. I just don't see him as a wide receiver on the outside. This is Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State, is a lot of people's number 1 wide receiver. And I can assure you, I'm not just taking this take to be out there and to get the attention for not having him as the number 1 guy. He is insanely fast. You watch him and you see Jamar Chase. You see guys with insane quickness who run routes incredibly fluidly and very, very. It's whenever he's out there, he runs routes beautifully. The one thing though is that when you watch him up against physical guys, guys who use their hands a lot, he can get erased. And he is the entire offense for Arizona State. Make no mistake. This is the guy that they're throwing to on screen passes. They're throwing down the field to this guy. He is, kind of that Drake London, the offense runs through me type of wide receiver, even if their games aren't comparable. But yeah, I just think that he lacks that physicality. Now, if he can gain that, if he can, add that aspect to his game of the hand fighting down the field, making late plays on the football, I think that he could be your wide receiver one. There's no doubt in my mind that if he, puts that together, he will be the best wide receiver in this class. But that's a lot to ask of a guy coming from Arizona State out of the first round. Probably he's going to be drafted. It's like, hey, learn how to use your hands against physical cornerbacks like Charvarius Ward or Sauce Gardner and beat them. It's like, well, that's probably not going to happen. I just don't see that happening early. Again, a guy who could develop, but to me is not there.
I think next time we do this, we should do like our top 10 big board and then just spend the hour talking about 10 players. Because
dude,
25 players might be too much for us to cover in an hour. Yeah, I agree with Tyson. Like he's a guy that I like the ball in his hands. That's the thing I like the most about him.
Yeah.
As far as a receiver. Now, I mean, he does have some nice, like he looks really good on a quick out. Like he's got some nice polish to those routes and the movement skills show up there, but the hands are inconsistent. And, you talked about what he looks like when he's being contacted within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. Carnell Tate, like Emeka Ibuka 2.0. Is that what we're doing here? Is this just the next? I mean, I don't think I've ever had a harder time taking the helmet off of a player than Carnell Tate.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just because like the tape is really good this year. Last year, not so much. But then you just believe in what you see. And it's Ohio State wide receivers just like, who's the worst Ohio State wide receiver in the NFL right now? Is it freaking Marvin Harrison Jr.? It might be, what's his name? Who's on the Bills?
No, not Khalil Shakir wasn't in.
No, it's he wears number 1. We'll get back to it. But, like there's just such belief and process there and for Ohio State that I have a hard time pushing Carnell Tate any further down. And he's not shown anything this year to not make me think that he could be the number 1 wide receiver taken in this class.
Oh, if I'm having a conversation with somebody and they tell me Carnell Tate's their wide receiver 1, I go, okay, that's a respectable opinion. I agree. He's not my number 1 wide receiver. He's tied with Chris Brazel II for my number 1. But dude, it's just everything's great. So you want him to block, he's a great blocker. You want him to be an elite receiving all-around threat. He can play in the slot, he can play outside. He'll do that for you. He's kind of that Devontae Smith plus is my comp for him in the league. Kind of a little bit thinner. But dude, I tried to watch some of his older tape from this year prior. I'm like, why wasn't he seeing the field? If he's this elite wide receiver, why isn't he? Oh, because he has maybe the top prospect in the country as a freshman and also maybe the rookie of the year wide receiver that's in the NFL right now. So it's like, yeah, you know what? He probably wasn't going to get a whole lot of reps behind those two guys. But he's just very, very, very refined, very, very polished prospect. And I think that when you look at what he's doing and you look at what his teammates have done, I know it's hard to remove the sticker from the helmet, but dude, he's just the next in a great line of Ohio State wide receivers who we would all love to see on the Chiefs, but never make it that far down the draft.
Okay, real quick, run me over your top 5.
So number 1, I have Caleb Downs, the safety out of Ohio State. He's going to be a lot of guys' number 1s. He's Minka Fitzpatrick plus, just a little bit bigger. Plays all over the field. I charted him with playing outside cornerback, slot cornerback, strong safety, free safety, and sub linebacker. So he is somebody who can play all over the field and does at an elite level. Just incredible eyes. If there's one criticism you can have of him, I think that sometimes he looks a little bit too much in the backfield and doesn't really play as receiver as well as he probably could. But if that's your only gripe with a guy, he's a pretty damn good DB. He's just super technically refined, pretty good athleticism, maybe not the top end elite that you look for in a guy who can play all over the place, but his intelligence makes up for that. He just really knows how to hand people off in zone or man somebody up on the outside. It's just, he's all over the place. He does an incredible job. Then I have, where is he at? I have Arvell Reese as my second guy, the linebacker. We've spoken about him. Chris Brazel and Carnell Tate are my next two guys. They're tied for third and tied for my wide receiver one spot. Chris Brazel, 6'5" wide receiver out of Tennessee, who is just, man, you watch him run routes, and a lot of people are going to criticize him for how he runs routes. To me, he's Jerry Jeudy plus. He's got the hands. He attacks the football. He's big. He's fast. I think that his off reps that he takes are probably the biggest thing. He kind of reminds me of, who's that Texas wide receiver that just got traded? A.D. Mitchell. Kind of reminds me of A.D. Mitchell, and he's not getting the ball. He's not doing a whole lot. And part of that's just because of the offense and what they're doing with their quarterback situation, letting him look at one side of the field. But part of me would like to see a little bit more effort and, that sort of next level setting guys up on the off plays and then taking advantage when you actually get the ball. Carnell Tate, Ohio State. And then I have Ty Simpson, Jeremiah Love, and Justice Haynes. Ty Simpson, we've spoken about. Jeremiah Love, dear God, please put him in the Chiefs offense. I have never prayed for a player to fall more than Jeremiah Love to Kansas City. I think that he has right now, he might not be that every down back, but he is James Cook and a little bit more. I mean, just super good out of the backfield, explosive, super fast, has the long speed where he can just beat guys and take their ankles. And he's got great, what's the word that I'm looking for here? Contact balance. If he's getting hit, he doesn't always go down on the first hit. And if you're looking at this Chiefs offense and the running back spot, and you go, man, I just wish we had somebody that could get one more yard or break one tackle or, beat one guy out in space. Jeremiah Love will do that for you 3 times in one play and then score a touchdown and hit a celly for you. Justice Haynes, my last guy I'm going to talk about, a running back out of Michigan. This is, to me, he's maybe the smartest, most well-rounded runner in this class. Very, very patient. I think he has the acceleration that you look for. To me, he's not super elite at everything, and that's what makes him elite. It's like, hey, there's really no deficiency in his game. I think you could point at him receiving out of the backfield as maybe something you could critique him on, but he just hasn't had the reps, I believe. I think he's shown flashes, but just an all-around guy where Chiefs draft him at the end of the first, you go, okay, good. We got our future running back, and he's going to be fantastic and above average in every single category for the next 10 years for KC, and we won't look back.
My top 5, Ruben Bain is my number 1 overall player, the edge out of Miami. Caleb Downs, a safety out of Ohio State, number 2. Ty Simpson, I have as my number 3 overall prospect, the quarterback out of Alabama. Arvell Reese, the linebacker from Ohio State, at 4. Francis Mauioga, the tackle from Miami, is my number 5 overall prospect. One last question for you, Christian. With the 32nd pick in the 2026 NFL draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select
Justice Haynes, running back from Michigan.
For me, the correct answer is LT Overton, the edge out of Alabama. That's going to do it for us here today. Hey, if you love the Kansas City Chiefs talk, you're in the right place. This show, The Intangibles, is powered by arrowheadaddict.com and Fansided, where fans share their passion every day. So be sure to check out the great written content on the website as well. Thank you for producer Richard. He may or may not still be awake. I think he's just like battling through listening to us. Like, we have just entered guys saying dudes' names over and over again territory. So shout out to him for dealing with the long show. And shout out to you guys in the chat, seeing lots of great draft commentary. Don't forget the Primetime Prospects. Check that out. It drops every Friday. Me talking more draft prospects. We're cranking up the draft content here as we get closer and closer to draft season. Thank you all so much for listening. Go Chiefs.